Hey everyone, hand waving. Have you ever wondered where your inner voice actually comes from? You know, that voice in your head that thinks, plans, worries, and sometimes argues with itself. Well, psychologist Julian Jaynes had one of the most mind-bending ideas ever about this. He believed that thousands of years ago, humans didn't even have consciousness the way we do now. Yep, according to him, the unconscious mind didn't exist yet. So let's dive into his wild theory from his book, The Origin of Consciousness in the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind. Julian Jaynes's book tries to answer a big question: where did our consciousness come from? Consciousness is the feeling of being aware of yourself, of having an inner voice, of thinking about the past, present, and future. It's the little voice in your head that asks, "What should I do?" or says, "I wish I hadn't done that." Jaynes has a very surprising idea. Consciousness is not something humans have always had. It is something that developed in history, and before that, humans had a totally different way of thinking. The bicameral mind, what was it? Jaynes's main idea is about what he calls the bicameral mind. Bicameral means two chambers, like a room with two parts. Jaynes says that a long time ago, humans' minds were split into two parts that worked together, but not in the way ours do today. Here's how the bicameral mind worked. One side of the brain, the speaking side, would speak commands or ideas. The other side of the brain, the listening side, would hear these commands, often as voices, and obey them. People with bicameral minds did not know the voice was coming from themselves. They really believed the voices were coming from outside, like from gods, ancestors, or spirits. So, if something scary happened or they needed to make a decision, they would hear a voice telling them what to do, and they would follow it. They didn't wonder about things the way we do now. How did the bicameral mind affect people? No self-reflection. People didn't have the kind of self-awareness we have. They didn't think, "Why did I do that?" or imagine themselves in the future. Obeying voices. When people faced problems, they would hear a voice which told them what to do, and they did it. Ancient stories. This is why, in very old stories, like the Iliad, gods are always talking directly to people and telling them what to do. Jaynes explains that people lived their whole lives thinking their decisions came from the gods, not from inside themselves. Evidence from ancient writings. Jaynes spends a lot of the book looking at very old writings and stories. For example, in the Iliad, an ancient Greek poem, heroes like Achilles and Agamemnon don't think or plan by themselves. Instead, gods appear and tell them what to do. In the Odyssey, a slightly newer Greek story, the main character Odysseus is more aware of himself and makes his own plans. This shows a change from bicameral mind to conscious mind. Jaynes also looks at ancient writings from Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Bible. He says that in the oldest writings, people never talk about their own thoughts, doubts, or plans. They only talk about voices from gods or spirits. In newer writings, people start to talk about themselves more. Why did the bicameral mind break down? Jaynes says that the bicameral mind worked well for a long time, but then the world changed, societies got bigger and more complicated. There were wars, migrations, and disasters. Old ways of doing things stopped working. When these changes happened, hearing voices was no longer enough to help people survive. They needed to make their own decisions, solve new problems, and talk to themselves in their minds. Jaynes thinks this led to the breakdown of the bicameral mind. The birth of consciousness. Consciousness means knowing you exist and can think about yourself. It's like a mind's eye or inner voice. After the bicameral mind broke down, people began to have a new kind of mind. They could talk to themselves inside their heads, remember things that happened to them, imagine different futures, plan ahead, wonder about their own thoughts and feelings. Jaynes says this happened about 3,000 years ago, so not really that long ago, if you think about all of human history. How did consciousness start? Jaynes thinks language was a big help in creating consciousness. Especially metaphors, saying something is like something else, help people imagine and talk about their own minds. For example, if you say, "I see what you mean," you're not really seeing anything, you mean you understand. But by using language like this, people learn to describe their inner thoughts. Proofs and clues. Jaynes points out a few more clues. Old laws and stories don't talk about people's thoughts. Later ones do. Statues in ancient temples were often supposed to talk, maybe because people really did hear voices in those places. Today, some people with mental illness, like schizophrenia, still hear voices and sometimes obey them, just like ancient people did. Jaynes thinks this is like a leftover piece of the bicameral mind. Jaynes's ideas are important because they make us think about where our thoughts and feelings really come from. Maybe we're not born with consciousness, but we learn it, just like we learn language. It's possible that our way of thinking is still changing. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into human psyche, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell notification bell so you never miss an upload. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. What surprised you the most? What would you like me to explore next? Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the world.